Have you ever noticed someone who looks totally fine online? They joke around. They post casually. They reply like nothing's wrong. But something about their presence feels off. Not sad. Not broken. Just quietly distant. Psychology says that people who hide their loneliness aren't doing it by accident. In fact, the ones who seem okay on the surface are often the ones hurting the most underneath. And the truth behind this might hit closer than you think. Today, we're decoding the psychology of people who never show their loneliness on social media. Maybe you know someone like this. Maybe you are someone like this. Let's break it down. Psychologists call it emotional masking, a survival habit where people look composed and in control, even when they're quietly falling apart. These are the people who still answer messages, they still make jokes, they still interact normally. But silence isn't emptiness. Sometimes silence is a shield. People who hide loneliness aren't pretending to be okay. They're protecting themselves from being exposed in a world that isn't always kind to vulnerability. But here's where it gets interesting. The people who carry the heaviest emotions are often the ones who've learned to hide them the best. Loneliness isn't always visible. It isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. And for many people, the fear isn't being seen. It's being misunderstood. Psychologists call this self-presentational pressure the anxiety that once you share something online, it gets twisted, judged, minimized, or ignored. They think things like, what if I open up and someone doesn't take it seriously? What if people think I'm dramatic? What if nobody cares? So instead of risking misinterpretation, they choose silence. Not because they don't feel deeply, but because they feel too deeply. And that fear creates a powerful pattern. They'd rather suffer quietly than have their pain reduced to comments or emojis. Every circle has that one friend who always seems strong, the listener, the problem solver, the one who checks on everyone else, the emotional anchor. Psychologists say these people often have high emotional intelligence, but low emotional expression. They can understand everyone's emotions except their own. So what do? They hide their loneliness, not out of pride, but because they've internalized the role of the strong one. And once people see you as strong, it becomes terrifying to be anything else. But here's the part nobody ever notices. Strong people get lonely too. They just don't know how to say it out loud. Social media rewards the highlights, birthdays, vacations, smiles, wins. But loneliness? It doesn't fit the aesthetic. It's not photogenic. It's not fun. It's not shareable. This creates what psychologists call identity splitting your real emotional world versus the polished version you feel pressured to show. So what happens? Online, they look stable. Inside, they feel unseen. And the more they perform, the more they disappear. The distance between who they are and who they show gets wider and wider. Some people don't hide their loneliness because they're secretive. They hide it because they're considerate. Psychologists call this compassion fatigue, the exhaustion that comes from always being the one who supports others. These people think, I don't want to be a burden. Everyone has their own problems. I'll figure it out myself. So instead of reaching out, they retreat inward. But this creates a heartbreaking cycle. The ones who comfort everyone rarely let anyone comfort them. There's another concept called psychological ownership, the feeling that certain emotions or experiences belong deeply to you. For many people, loneliness becomes one of those emotions, a private, internal battle that doesn't feel right to share publicly. They don't want pity. They don't want attention, and they don't want to explain pain, that they barely understand themselves. Their loneliness isn't a moment. It's a personal journey. And journeys aren't meant to be posted. Some emotions feel too sacred to hand over to algorithms. Most people don't realize this, but the people who hide their loneliness often score high on internal locus of control, meaning their self-worth comes from themselves, not from online validation. They understand how social media warps reality. They see how comparison creeps in without permission. So instead of participating in the performance, they simply step back, not from life, but from the pressure to broadcast it. They choose privacy over performance, peace over attention, authenticity over approval, and that makes them a lot stronger than they appear. Withdrawing isn't running away. Sometimes it's reclaiming your identity. Loneliness creates silence. Silence creates more loneliness. Psychologists call this the loneliness loop, a cycle that traps people who feel too scared to speak out and too exhausted to keep pretending. They want connection, but not the surface level kind. They want someone who notices the quiet changes, someone who understands the unsaid, someone who sees past the smile. And here's the sad irony. Social media gives visibility, not intimacy, and intimacy is what lonely people crave the most. Here's something most people never realize. The people who hide their loneliness aren't empty. They're overflowing with thoughts they never share, feelings they never voice, stories they never tell, dreams they never mention, pain they never post. They observe deeply. They care quietly. They love intensely. They break silently. And they heal alone, not because they want to, but because they don't know another way. These are the people who feel life the most. They just don't perform it for others. And this one truth will change how you see them forever. Some of the loudest hearts belong to the quietest people. So the next time you see someone who never posts their struggles, don't assume they're fine. Some storms are silent. Some battles are invisible. Some smiles are practiced. And some of the loneliest people look the happiest online. They're not hiding because they're weak. They're hiding because they're trying to function, trying not to worry anyone, trying to understand themselves, trying to hold on. And in a world obsessed with being seen, maybe the bravest thing a person can do is heal quietly in the dark without applause. If you want to understand people beyond what they post, hit subscribe, because here we don't chase attention, we decode the mind.